Even my house a mess. I'm gonna clean up bottles, juices, water, napkin, plastic bag. Okay, let's make this kind of quick. I don't want to talk for too long, but I want to bring home the point. This is the third video in the series of whatever. I don't know how many videos we're going to do. This is where we left off before. I feel like this is where we should pick up. I mentioned some things about people back in the day not having the advent of the internet. But I'm going to bring up some things that are online and kind of talk about them, and I'll reference these articles. Let me see what I want to talk about first. You see, when I first got into growing the jabuticaba, anything with a large or different leaf or growing habit had a kind of a common name. They would call it large leaf or weeping. And they didn't have all these scientific names that came out in that Blue Brazilian Fruits and Cultivated Exotics book, the one that's no longer in print. When that book came out, it kind of spelled out and showed some pictures and gave some descriptions of these varieties that had already been introduced. The jabuticaba was first introduced into the United States in the early 1900s. It's been here for a very long time. The first introductions were in Hawaii, California, Florida, okay? And they had trouble in Florida with the lime rock soils, and they're very slow growing, and I guess people just didn't know how to take care of them at the time, and they just took forever to grow. But they had them here for a long time, and the first introductions did very poorly. And they were trying to grow all sorts of varieties that they got from farmers markets or produce stands or whatever in Brazil, and even probably Uruguay, Argentina, whatever. There's all these different places, Bolivia, where you can get similar jabuticaba type fruits. Brazil is the epicenter, but all of the neighboring countries also have plinias, myrcierias, eugenias, things like that that are closely related and of economic importance that haven't been discovered yet. So, back in the day, when I first got into collecting, there's a lot more mystery behind these varieties. You didn't know if you had a Paulista or a Coronata, but here's a list. I'm just going to read it. This is some of the ones that Julia Morton wrote about in Fruits of Warm Climates. She did a book. It's called Julia Morton, Fruits of Warm Climates. Everyone references and cites her work in that book. Although it's all outdated, a lot of it is outdated now and not really, it's antiquated. It needs to be updated, all the names and blah, blah, blah. So these are some of the names that were the Old Guard. The things that were already here that you can still find in collections that they still are rare and new, but they've been here for damn near 50, 100 years, some of them. Myrcieria cauliflora, okay? That's Plinia cauliflora. Paulista. I got Paulista. Takes forever to fruit. It's a really good one. It makes a big fruit. I'm not going to get into the descriptions too much about them, but I just want to talk about this list of varieties that they always cite that are from the Old Guard, that are just kind of, I want to say, they were so exciting when I first heard about them. Now that I've gotten into collecting, they're here. Other people have them. There's even hybrids of them that have occurred that people don't even know about because they've been here so long, but it's rare. Okay, you got Myrcieria cauliflora, and then the varieties of it: Paulista, Rajada, Roxa, Ponhema, Minieria, whatever the heck, Branca. They're saying there's a Branca cauliflora. Now they're calling Sabra a cauliflora. Precoce, Hybrida. They called those two different. I'm reading an article by Ken Love that was written in 2011, June. Jaboticaba, Ken Love and Robert E. Paul, Hawaii Tropical Fruit Growers, Department of Tropical Plants and Soil Sciences. I'm just trying to show you how confusing this shit is and what is out there that people are citing because it's written. They have abstracts, they published it, and so they're the truth, okay? But not exactly, because he's saying Myrcieria cauliflora cultivars include Sabra, Precoce, Hybrida, as they are separate. First off, Sabra is not a cauliflora. It represents a different species. That's Plinia jaboticaba. Second off, Precoce and Hybrida are synonymous with the same variety, which is the red. So he's got this other one called Ascuda. Pingo de Mel is another one you hear about all the time, which is actually, if I'm not mistaken, it says in the book I could reference, but it may not even be. I don't know if that's a cauliflora or a jaboticaba variety. Here, let's find out. It maybe is a cauliflora variety. But this old book here has a list, and I can tell you if that's a cauliflora or a Plinia jaboticaba. Let me get a really quick. I'm just curious because I don't even remember. Okay, so here we are. Plinia jaboticaba. Rajada is a jaboticaba, not so he's got Rajada on the list of Myrcieria cauliflora cultivars, which is not right. He's got them jumbled up, caulifloras and Plinia jaboticabas. So Plinia cauliflora, Plinia jaboticaba, two separate species. He's got them jumbled together. And so Rajada, he has as a cauliflora, that's a jaboticaba, Plinia jaboticaba. Sabra, let's see what else. Pingo de Mel, that is Plinia jaboticaba, not Plinia cauliflora. Plinia caulifloras generally are more precocious and have a more range in flavor, I think. I mean, they're more acid sometimes, is what I've heard and noticed. Let's see what else he's got on the list. He's got one called Young Hands, which is probably just one that I think the guy's name is Seymour Young Hands. He probably brought it back in the mid 1900s, and who knows what it is. He's got Sabra on the list of cauliflora. J1 from Australia, God knows what that is. I've never heard of it. Some of these are ones that he's included. And then he goes on to say that there's 40 Myrcieria species, more than, which include the Camu Camu, Glomerata, Tenella, Trunciflora, Trunciflora, Vexator, Ariana, okay, Coronata, okay, Grandifolia, Jaboticaba, Oblongata, Fetrantha. These other Myrcieria species may exist in Hawaii, but are very rare. Okay, let me explain something to you. What he has written there, I would debate. Because, first off, those are now not designated as Myrcieria. If you wanted to separate Myrcieria from Plinia, you would have said Myrcieria dubia, Myrcieria glomerata, Myrcieria tenella, Myrcieria vexator, Myrcieria glazioviana, Myrcieria guaquiea, Myrcieria strigipes. There's a list that goes on. Myrcieria pilosa, probably, if I even have that right. I don't even know if it's I think it's a Myrcieria. I think it's separated more so kind of by the bark type, and he is taking not he, there's a group of people here, two people that wrote this article, are lumping together a lot of Plinias. They're designated as a Plinia, and he's saying they're Myrcieria. So I think that's just kind of funny. Okay, the whole article is written that way, where he doesn't, I don't know if they even did the name change at this time where they separated the Plinias from the Myrcierias. So it was commonplace to just call them all Myrcieria at the time of writing this article. So you can see how everything gets changed around. But it's interesting to see Plania trunciflora is Plania. Absolutely doesn't remind me of a Myrcieria. You can't graft it onto Glazioviana, you know, the yellow Jaboticaba, and the trunciflora are totally different. But what's really confusing is that, you know, I don't think you put Plania edulis on here, the Cambuca. And Cambuca can be grafted onto Sabara. So it's really confusing because that fruit looks nothing like a typical Jabuticaba, but it's actually graft compatible, and the leaf doesn't look like it. I'd say it's partially graft compatible because I've heard of long-term failure. So let me digress from this about all this name confusion. But I did go over a list of the Old Guard, and I'll do it one more time. This represents some of the things that were already here in America before we started to import all these new and exciting varieties from Brazil that had just recently been popularized or maybe reinvigorated by collectors in Brazil in the mid to early 2000s. Okay, these were ones that had even been lost in Brazil or just newly developed in Brazil or found and selected in Brazil in private, you know, in the rainforest, in private collections. So there's a lot of them that they just didn't know how deep it goes, the variation. But let's go over that first list one more time. They're calling it just by species Myrcieria cauliflora. And then there's just like a little designation for Myrcieria jabuticaba all by itself. Even though these should all be Plinias, and a lot of the varieties he has as Myrcieria cauliflora in the beginning are actually varieties of Myrcieria jabuticaba, which is the most common species in the world, which represents Sabara, Plinia jabuticaba, Sabara, which is found in all your nurseries everywhere in the world. Small leaf, wonderful fruit, widely adaptable, and that's why it's so popular, I bet. It's because it's just widespread, widely adaptable, king of beers, Budweiser, whatever, even though that's piss trash. All right, Myrcieria cauliflora, Paulista, Rajada, Roxa, Ponema, Minieria, whatever that is, Branca, Sabra, Precoce, Hybrida, Pingo de Mel, Young Hands, Sabra, Camu Camu, Myrcieria glomerata, Myrcieria tenella, Myrcieria trunciflora, Myrcieria vexator, Myrcieria ariana. White, so he's got a white jabuticaba separate from the Branca, which is kind of interesting. Okay, Myrcieria coronata. These are all Plinias. Plinia grandifolia, Plinia jabuticaba, Plinia oblongata, Plinia fetrantha. Okay, so that was the list. And then from here, have all that confusion, but let's take one more step back in time. And I need to find this article. This was a study done in 19... So this is before the internet was popping, all right? I just want to demonstrate something here. I may be able to show it. It doesn't matter. It's all public domain and all that. But let me figure this out real quick. If I can get this to, this is a study that they did, and I'll read from it. 1982, am I getting this right? By Mary Ann Ogden, Fruit Corps Department, University of Florida, Gainesville. Carl W. Campbell, Agricultural Research and Educational Center, University of Florida, Homestead. Okay? So this is something put together by the top scientists that would care about this in the United States, working at the universities in Gainesville, of UF, and Homestead, 1982. Richard Campbell's dad, matter of fact, the guy that does all the work on the mango grafting, Carl W. Campbell, was doing his best with what he had. And this is what he did. With no internet. Letters being written back and forth. And just guessing, I guess. But he says, and I'm going to summarize this, the Jabuticaba is a slow-growing tree. It would be advantageous to graft Jabuticaba scions onto vigorous, native, or edifically, I don't even know how to say this word, edifically adapted rootstocks to induce precocity and scion vigor. He was on to something. This guy's smart. First off, I'm going to say he was really on to something. But let's see the path they take. 6 genera and 10 species of native and exotic relatives were evaluated as potential rootstocks for Jabuticaba. Okay? So they're going over 10 species of native and exotics that are being evaluated as rootstocks. No satisfactory alternative rootstock was identified. Although several species formed unions, none survived for more than 1 year. A micro cleft graft technique is also described for Jabuticaba. So he did a lot of smart things here. He used a micro cleft graft, which is smart. And let's see what he did. So he's calling them all cauliflora. There's no designation of Plinia jabuticaba so far. So he's going off, they're going off kind of the Julia Morton thing, the old news. Materials and methods. Let's hear the names he used here. Okay. I'm going over what they did here. So they are trying to graft Sabra, I believe, all right, Plinia jabuticaba. In the article, they call it Mirceria cauliflora. They're probably trying to graft Sabra here onto different rootstocks. There's a lot of botanical names I can't say. I'm going to try to say it. Calyptranthus palens. So that was probably a Myrcianthes or a Eugenia type. Okay, they're calling it Eugenia axillaris. So that's a native Eugenia axillaris. They all died, and one lived for 2 months and died. That was just scion juice flowing. They tried to graft it onto Suriname cherry, a bunch of different Eugenias. They tried to graft it onto itself, and looks like they had it work. Let's see, they did tissue mingled. Okay, they tried to graft onto a bunch of different native Eugenias, Myrcerias. They even tried Syzygium cumini. It didn't work. They did... Wow. I'm just trying to get to the meat and potatoes of this to see what actually worked. Response of... Okay, well... I remembered a different article. Let's see if I can... All species tested as rootstocks showed some degree of tissue mingling or graft unions. Some species demonstrated better healing and sprouting of buds than other species. The relative performance of the rootstocks is summarized. Even though all species showed sufficient affinity to permit mingling of tissues, none tested showed sufficient longevity to be considered as a rootstock for Mirceria cauliflora. So this is what they didn't understand at the time. And I'm going to explain this. He didn't know of all the varieties and how all the species were split up and designated now. Mirceria cauliflora that he was calling is Plinia jabuticaba. That was the rootstock. He's trying to graft the rootstock. He's trying to find a rootstock for the rootstock. He didn't know that the stuff he was trying to graft was the rootstock he was trying to use. But he didn't have the advent of the internet to tell him about all the varieties out there that were graft compatible with the Sabra. And sorry, my head itched there. Got an idea. Through the process of grafting and trialing and being desperate to find something as a rootstock to graft on all these new and cool varieties I was finding in collections in Florida and importing, I was desperate to find something to graft onto. See, he didn't have all those varieties. And if he did, maybe he would have been like, well, dang, I should just put those on the common one. And that's what I did. And that was what needed to be done. That's where the money was at. He was looking for something to increase precocity, increase the vigor. That is what the Sabra does. But he was trying to use it as the scion instead of the rootstock, which is kind of like a moot point or a dead end, okay? So now do you see what I'm trying to say about all the information we received and how lucky we are to have the advent of the internet and then all these varieties out there? It gets very confusing. And if you're relying on old news that is cited as reliable literature on the subject, you're going to be so fucking confused, you're not going to know what's going on. You're going to read what the pros are writing here and be like, well, I wrote this about Merceria, this, and you don't, it's all old shit now. That's all I'm saying. I stayed up on it. I cared. I made this my life's work. And so I feel really lucky to kind of look at this and have an understanding of what's going on and be able to say something about it. Because otherwise, people would just look at it and be like, that's what's written. I mean, that's the science on the subject. That's the truth. I mean, I know that's what AI does. It's just going to go quote what the hell's in the article and say that's the truth. You got your answer. Anyhow, the fact of the matter is, it's very exciting. Sabra Plinia jaboticaba is the most common variety. That was what they were trying to graft. It is a great rootstock. It acts like a filter. You go and take a red jaboticaba, which kind of stays a little yellow and hungry. You put it on, or let's say trunciflora, for instance. I hadn't seen a trunciflora growing in the soil that didn't have burnt leaf tips. As soon as I grafted it, it grew perfect without a single burnt leaf tip. So you have those strong roots that are widely adaptable of the Sabra, and then the scion of the trunciflora, which is not so widely adaptable. And when they come together and mingle, it makes a stronger plant that's more widely adaptable and capable of tolerating the poor soils here and the suboptimal growing conditions of being out of their native range. And that's what they were going for. I haven't written any scientific papers on the subject or any abstracts, but I know what's going on and I've made it my life's work to test this out. So that's what I wanted to share with you. And then we'll go into some of the from here it's really just going outside and doing some of the propagation techniques and trying to do some grafting, show you some grafts, kind of what happens, and then from there, breeding. I can show you some information on breeding. I mean, it's all proprietary information I've worked really hard that I want to compile into a book. But at this time, this is the best we got. I don't feel like writing a book right now. So we're going to put it out like this. So there are some really cool things that I've come to find that aren't written in a book that I've noticed about the flower and how to pollinate it and the timing and actually a male phase and a female phase of the flower that people, I've never seen really much written about it, but there is a female receptive phase and then a male shedding phase of Plinia flowers. And so I'll try to demonstrate and show that. So that was what the talk was about today. I wanted to show you all the confusion, all of the names and how they're changed and how they should, I think, kind of be separated from the Mercerias somewhat and the Plinias, okay? I'm excited about Mercerias. I'm excited about Eugenias. I really don't give a shit about Syzygium, okay? This is how my mind works. I don't care about how your mind works and what you like. Unfortunately, I mean, I do, but in this case, it's just what, as like me saying, this is what I like to eat. I like steak, or I like vanilla pudding, and like I don't like spinach or like fish, things like that. It's just how I feel, all right? It's not because of any other reason than how I feel, but this is how I feel, all right? Mercerias, I really like them, but they're not as good as Plinias. Eugenias, I really like them, and I mean, I don't see them as better or worse than Plinias, but I just like Plinias the best, all right? I'm after those. But then you got Mercerias, which kind of are like close, but not the same, and they're exciting and really cool, but you might have something labeled as a Merceria that's really a Plinia too, so you got to kind of include those, but You find out it's a Myrcieria, and my kind of excitement level just drops down a little bit. And then the Eugenias are very exciting because there's so much variation and range in flavors and size of fruit. So those are very exciting, and I like them a lot. But Plania, maybe, Myrcera Eugenia. Syzygium, it's like, get out of here, man. I don't want nothing to just go away. Go away. Even if they're good, bad, I just don't care. Just go away. That's how I feel, okay? And I don't know why that is. I just wanted to say that. Go out in my collection and look for syzygiums. And we're not going to find too many. I've gone to people's collections that grew lily pilly and wax jamboos and all this shit. Just keep them away, man. They're not welcome here. But I have some. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Syzygium jambos or rose apples. Go grow your rose apples and your wax apples and your water apples and your mountain apples and your Malay apples. Keep them out of here. Okay? When you see that bark that's peeling like that, and then the fruit like a sabra, right? You just think of sabra as the baseline. Peeling bark, flowers on the trunk, sweet fruits with maybe a thick shell and some seeds, whatever, growing on the old wood. This is what I'm after. Peeling bark. Cauliflower's fruiting habit. At the very best, maybe on the second year's growth, maybe, but towards the branch tips starts to piss me off. Okay? The further you go towards the branch tips, it's pissing me off. And now you're getting into Myrcierias. See what I'm saying? This is how my mind works. I'm just trying to tell you. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm after caulifloris, bark peeling, reminiscent of sabara. I don't want... What's that one? You know what I'm talking about. If it fruits on the tips of the branches, what's going to happen, if you're trying to push the zone limits, you can't really prune it back the same way. And I want it to fruit on the old wood. You can keep that tree small and a big tree in a small pot with a big chunk of old wood. It fruits all on the old wood, and you can cut back the new growth and keep it small but big. And you can't do that really with the Myrcieria dubia, with the the camu camu. You can't really do it with a Myrcieria glomerata, with a Myrcieria vexator. You just can't do it. So my excitement level drops down. That's what I'm saying. This is how I think. That's it. So I get excited about planias. I get excited about cauliflower. I get excited about peeling bark. I get excited about sweet tasting fruit. Multiple crops. Stays small. Beautiful new growth. Vivid red, new growth. Boom, multicolored growth. Deep dark green, big leaf. Small leaf. Upright, weeping. Try Cambuca grafted on Sabra. I've sold them. I'd love to get an update of how they turned out. I saw a farm of a Taiwanese grower. It looked like he had 1,000 of them grafted onto Sabra, maybe. So maybe it does work. I've done it, and I'll do it again this year. And when I do it, I sell them pretty cheap. I put the disclaimer on it. I've seen these grafted. I don't have any long-term. I can't tell you how it works long-term. I'll graft them and sell them for like 120, something like that. But I'll graft up I'm going to try to graft some up this year. So that was my little speech, buddy. I really appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. I would much rather have Cambuca grafted on Cambuca, but that's based on my limited experience. I have one out there, Cambuca grafted on Cambuca. It does really well. I like yellow jabuticaba. I like it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to go without it. But if you had to just cut me off and say, where are you going to focus? What do you care about? Where's the money at? Or like, where's your favorite? What do you want the most? What's the, like, I guess if you want to rank shit, because people always say, what's your favorite plant? Or what's your favorite this? Or what's your favorite that? Well, I'm going through economics and trying to think of the most appealing. What is the most appealing? And not just to me, but to a wide range, okay? That's an underlying theme there. And that's where the yellow jabuticaba and the Mircerias get fucking to the left, to the left. Okay? All right, thanks for watching. Yeah. I'm not abandoning them by any means. Thanks, Dragon Master 32. I can read that. I want to say too, I notice people when they put the order, they put a little comment or they say this or that. It helps. Just you keep doing that. I really appreciate that. Oh, I see your little comment. I really, it touches my heart. I mean, I really does. I would like a little, I want to make a collage like a scrapbook. But I see it and it really does. It makes me feel good. Like it's like a tip. It's like better than a tip, man. It's better than a tip. Just like, hey, I watch your videos and it's really inspiring and I'm doing this and that. And maybe I don't reply or seem like I care, but in the bottom of my heart it does. It gives me like, it's the opposite of being like, hey man, we heard about that shit you did over there, and you're a fucking piece of shit. Like, I know what kind of piece of shit you are. So it just feels good to have people saying nice things like, it's really nice. I really appreciate it. It's just the exact opposite of being ridiculed. It makes you feel good. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas, guys. I really appreciate you. We'll keep them coming. Keep them carton letters coming. I'm going to do another video here soon. This is the third, and I've got them linked all together, but I'll have this one linked as the third, as the part of the series here. Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you very much.